everyone's looking for the young guy. They're looking for McVay. I think take a shot out Todd Bowles, get him a second shot at head coach, and see if he can do it.
I don't think they will. If they don't have Anthony Davis, I'm saying it right now. If Anthony Davis is out for the playoffs, they don't make it out of the first round.
It's crazy. And our kids will know how great Tom Brady is because he's going to be playing.
Yes, it is 15.0%.
That's what the Yankees brought Garrett Cole to do.
He was a 6th-round pick. This is a fairy tale story that's being written in front of our eyes.
People like to call them their JV team, and they just stole one of their better players.
They didn't struggle against the Padres. The Padres didn't really put up a fight in most of the games.
Jerry Jones, hope you're listening.
Hi, I'm Landon Bowe, and you're listening to Outsiders Opinions with Kevin and Austin.
What's up, y'all? Welcome to our just sports opinions of the week. We did already do a video talking about Halliburton and just the finals, but in that video, I didn't mention to Austin, who described his feelings of kind of when he realized it. To me, it was before the replay started, and you could see Halliburton's face of just realizing that, oh no, he just tore his Achilles because of the fall. And sort of that, which leads to the most heartbreaking moment in sports. And now with the man with the parameters about this conversation, Austin.
Yeah, so I want to make this clear. There's a difference between scary and heartbreaking. Damar Hamlin is scary. That's a scary situation, not heartbreaking for the franchise. It's a scary moment and one you never want to see. But I consider that, or Paul George's injury on Team USA, or Sean Livingston's injury, or a lot of these injuries that are regular season injuries, most of them are scary, especially if they're even like Kevin Ware. I don't know if you've seen that injury. Where
I haven't seen the video, but yeah, I know where his leg.
Yeah, you can see bone through his skin. So that's scary. Not necessarily heartbreaking because Louisville goes on to win a title that year. So heartbreaking, no. Scary, 100%. So that's a baseline. And two, this needs to be something that happens on the court, on the field, on the ice. It cannot be something front office or free agent. It can't be DeAndre Jordan deciding not to go to the Mavs, right? As he's like, he's going to go to the Mavs, and it doesn't. Sure, that's heartbreaking, but that's not really the intent of this video. I'm trying to avoid, because that's that sort of stuff. I don't even think, like, even the Lucas situation we can get into for a small second here. We didn't think it was real, right? There was at least a couple hours, 2 or 3, 4 hours, where I didn't even think. I thought this was either a prank or a joke or not feasible, or so it doesn't have that instant reaction of pure heartbreak immediately, if you get what I'm saying. I think trades are a little bit different. Same thing with free agency signings like KD to the Warriors. So there has to be something that happens on court. Is not a front office decision. And it has to genuinely impact the end result of the season. So this can be regular season, but it would have to be a big regular season game. It can't be Gordon Hayward breaking his leg game 1 against the Cavs in 2018. That does not count. Right, that is not a good, or 2019. I don't actually remember. I think it was 2018, but it could have been 2019. I think it was 2018 though. That is not a good example to me, because while it hurts the Celtics title chances that year, it's game 1, right? It's early in the year, and now he's out for basically the entire year because of how brutally he broke his leg. Or Jeremy Lin tearing his ACL game 1 with the Nets after scoring 17, 18 points. Again, heartbreaking in the moment, but is it heartbreaking for the entire this season? I would say no. So I'll let you kind of lead this off. You can kind of go in any way you want to. If you want to start with Halliburton, we can start with it first, but I'll let you go.
Yeah, so I would say I was curious about the Luka trade, and then sort of before, I'm sure in the kind of in the parameters as well, player deaths, because you do have Johnny Gaudreau. That is different than heartbreaking.
That is something beyond sports that I don't think is a heartbreaking moment in sports. It's a heartbreaking moment
just in life, I would say.
So I don't think it's a fair example either, because you compare somebody's life to a moment in sports is obviously insignificant. Like the moment in sport is so much more insignificant than somebody's life. So I don't think that's a fair example either.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's not a fair example. I just kind of when we think of heartbreaking, to me, that's kind of
I'm glad you brought that up though to clear that up, because that is definitely a moment recent in the past calendar year that I was extremely heartbroken by and shocked by, but it doesn't fit the criteria for this video.
Yeah, to me, kind of thinking about it, it's more like athlete and just kind of, I think you can think of Hall of Fame, like legacy, kind of with this video.
Legacy
And
altering plays, whether it's injury wise, mistake wise, or none of the above. It needs to be something that defines the team's success for that season in a major way.
So I think a couple come to mind. Of course, Halliburton, just kind of as we already talked about in yesterday's video, just how it impacted the finals, but also how it's going to alter his career. Then I think of Joe Pavelski and that run with the Dallas Stars, of kind of that run we were gearing up for, how that impacts his legacy because he doesn't have a ring as a player. Then I want to go to Chicago in the double doink. I think that's a little heartbreaking, just the way it happened. And in that same vein, you could do the Bills against the Giants field goal kick.
I mean, I was thinking Dez. I was thinking moments like that. Nelson Cruz immediately comes to mind when I think heartbreaking moments.
That's a great one. Yep.
That's Game 6 World Series, right? This is even like divisional round. Same thing for the Bears and the Cowboys. That doesn't guarantee you a title, right? Even if you go to the NFC Championship game, they win both of those games respectively. It doesn't necessarily mean you win a title, but Nelson Cruz, literally speaking, makes that catch. You're World Series champions.
Yeah, that is definitely heartbreaking as well. And yeah, it's heartbreaking because I texted my brother like 3 more outs and he said, do not do that. And that is in reference to 1 more out, Nelson Cruz.
I think another moment that immediately comes to mind is which one do I want to do first? Well, we'll start with this one. These are going to be in 2 different veins. One of them is going to be early in the game, one's going to be late in the game. Both include the same team. One positive, one negative. This is going to be obvious what it is extremely early. The interception that Russell Wilson throws on the goal line, the Malcolm Butler interception, that's heartbreaking because you know the game's over basically right when he throws it. Like that is the play that decides the game. And that's to have a game decided on one play is going to be heartbreaking for the other side. And then to also include Seattle, I would go the safety to start the game for the Broncos, because I think that kind of is the reason they were so derailed. And it wasn't anything the Seahawks did. The center just snaps it over Peyton Manning's head, and that just kind of snowballed into something a lot greater.
Yeah, those are some great points. Kind of thinking about that, those are moments in the game where, especially Seattle and the interception, it's like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this happened. And kind of
can't believe the play call, can't believe the pick. The guy who picked it, it's a guy who really hasn't played all year. Pete Carroll's obviously the offensive play caller, so him deciding to do that, him deciding to throw the ball, just everything about it. That means that Joe Montana and Tom Brady are now tied. I mean, it just has so much riding on one play, on one decision, on one great play by Butler and mistake by the Seahawks offense that kind of define. I mean, if they go back to back, I think we're talking about Russell Wilson a little bit differently. I think we're talking about the Seahawks a little bit differently. But because of that play call, we aren't.
Absolutely. And I would almost classify those as heartbreaking for the fan, which is a lot of these moments. But you also kind of have to think about heartbreaking moment for the players. That, to me, is why Tyrese Halliburton's injury stands the most, because it happens in every way. It's heartbreaking for the player, heartbreaking for the fans, and just like
and
in
it
general.
Dooms a very legitimate chance to win a title, your first title in franchise history. So I definitely think that's. I mean, I'm gonna have to really think if there's one that's worse than that. But it's hard because it's not just this season; it's his career that we're now in jeopardy, and the Pacers' future is now in jeopardy because of the injury. So it does more than just that title. It's the next couple years that we're going to have to seriously wonder about not just Halliburton's success, but can he play at the same level that he's done before?
Yeah, another one that is basketball related, even though I wasn't really paying attention. You have Derrick Rose tearing his ACL.
Sure, that's bad, but I mean, I think that's kind of in vain. I mean, it's not really as compared. He was still really young when it happened, so while it's heartbreaking and it definitely ruins their playoff chances that year, and that's a good example. You don't think an ACL tear is going to end a career the way it did because he had so many injuries afterwards. It's why I'm a little bit worried about Halliburton's. Halliburton's had the wrist injury, the back injury, and now the Achilles injury. D Rose had eye injuries and hand injuries and concussions and stuff that's not knee related. So the ACL wasn't what caused it; it just kind of sparked it. And I do think it's a good example, but I think it's a little bit different from Halliburton because an ACL tear happens a lot more often than an Achilles. I mean, you could go. I wouldn't say KD for the Warriors, but I would say Klay. I think people still believed they could win Game 6, and I believed it. I thought they were going to win Game 6 because Klay was playing amazing until Klay got hurt. And I was like, oh, they can't do this with just Curry, right? They can't. They're not good enough with just Curry. So that's what I would say the heartbreaking moment is. Even though it is heartbreaking for KD to tear his Achilles, I think Klay going down. He's a core 3 Warrior. He's been there his entire career at this point. Obviously, when we're talking about it, so Curry and Draymond couldn't carry the load without him. But they had won a title with just the 3 of them before, so I thought they had a chance. And even in that game was extremely, extremely close until the Klay injury.
Yeah, I was curious about Klay because the ACL wouldn't really count because that was before the season. Right? His ACL because because Klay has 2 injuries. You have the Achilles injuries, which you mentioned.
No. He tears his ACL in the game. He tears his Achilles a year later when trying to ramp up.
Okay, so with the Klay
against
injury,
the Raptors, he tore his ACL.
Okay, ACL. Okay, got it. I thought it was Achilles. So yeah, the Achilles wouldn't really count in this one because that's
the
at the
fact that
season.
he tears his Achilles about a year later while trying to ramp up from the ACL is unrelated to this being heartbreaking.
Yeah. So the ACL one would be heartbreaking, but the Achilles, kind of as we talked about before, heartbreaking. The sent video. So kind of is a lot. I would say Halliburton is probably up there. It's really hard to top, and I don't think it's just recency bias.
No, it's not. Game 7 of the NBA Finals. He's playing well. The game's tied in the first quarter. No, it's not crazy to say. I think Kyrie tearing his ACL Game 1 in 2015 Finals is up there. I think an example that's another mistake is Blake Snell getting taken out of Game 6 against the Dodgers. He was allowed no runs. They take him out. They allow 3, and basically the game's over then. A lot of people in the 6th inning were like, why take him out? And then immediately afterwards, they give up runs. So I think that's another. I think most of the heartbreaking ones, though, happen with teams that haven't won a title in a while or haven't won a title ever. I said the Warriors example, and there's probably examples for every team that have heartbreaking moments, but I think the ones that are fighting for their first in a very long time, or in a generation at least, those you feel those a lot more.
And the Rangers definitely fits that because that was their second straight year in the World Series. They had just lost. Yeah, it goes 10-11, right? For Rangers, or am I? The Rangers.
Yeah, it's 10-11.
Yeah, 10-11. 10, they had just lost to the Giants, but it was their first time. Then they make it back, and it is on the verge of their first championship. And then you have that Nelson Cruz just mishap. And you could also, because I remember Nelson Cruz was subbed in at right field. It was a fielding change, which plays more into just the heartbreaking moment.
Yeah. an error on many fronts. Most of these things aren't just one moment, but they're defined by one moment, right? There's a lot of mistakes that go into it. Maybe not in the Halliburton, maybe not in injury sense, but in a lot of those mistakes, it's multiple mistakes lead up to one huge mistake that's defined the series or the season for that team.
Yeah, absolutely. And it just is also it's a series of mistakes and just how it affects the careers of players. Of course, Nelson Cruz is tied to that moment. Malcolm Butler is tied to that moment as well. And yeah, Cody Parkey is tied to that Bears moment. I can't remember the Bills kicker. So I'm trying to think of his name as I remember it. And then another thing, just thinking of the Bills and heartbreak, the 13 seconds, I don't think is heartbreaking in this sense because that's just a better Mahomes play, even though it was a coaching mistake.
I guess I can see that.
Because you go through a lot of Bills, moments in the past season, and just think of heartbreak.
Yeah, I think you can do that for a lot of teams. I think you can do that for the Ravens. I mean, there's Lamar throwing the pick in the end zone. There's wide receiver's name, went to Boston College. Zay Flowers?
Oh, yeah, Zay Flowers. Oh, yeah, the fumble.
The
Zay
fumble.
Flowers. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. And the punch.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot that goes into it. And I think for almost every team, there's a lot of these moments where they personally feel. I mean, go Boston Bruins, 2013, Game 6, they're up 2-1. Chicago scores. Then like 20 seconds later, they score again. There was like a minute and 15 seconds left when they scored that first goal. There's like 45 seconds when they scored the second goal, and now they went from down 2-1. The Blackhawks did to up 3-2, and they win the Stanley Cup off that. But I think every team can define these moments how they've experienced them. But I think it's a world or a sports worldwide thing to your first sports heartbreak and the latest one as well, because I do think that everyone has one of those if you're really into sports.
Yeah, and it cannot just be from your team, as of course, like the Rangers are on this list. Luka is heartbreaking, but yeah, it is out of front office. Dez as well. I would almost say the maybe more heartbreaking is the field goal, that comeback, or just the most recent Packers-Cowboys. You can choose a lot of those games of where the Cowboys just got trampled.
Yeah. So you think that's the most heartbreaking moment for the Cowboys in the last 10 years? Or we'll go since the death catch?
Is that one. Yeah. I would say that just absolute no-show in that game. And it's the first time the 7 seed beat the number 2 seed.
True. They were a good 7 seed, though. I mean, they pushed the 49ers to the brink, and that team went to the Super Bowl. So
that's true, but I think that's going to be the only 7 seed that beats the 2 seed.
It won't be someone will win again. It's just how long, right? So it will happen, given the infinite span of the universe. We'll just have to see when that happens. But yeah, I mean, like the Wizards, there's Paul Pierce's shot in Game 6 against the Atlanta Hawks. It looks like a 3-pointer to tie. They tied the game. We're going to OT. Then it turns out that he didn't get the shot off in time. So it went in, but it just 0.1 seconds off, and we're going to overtime. That's a Wizards moment. Packers, I think Larry Fitzgerald's catch, where he catches it and then runs 60 yards down the field after the amazingness that was Rodgers and Jeff Janis going down the field to force overtime. I already said one for the Bruins. For the Yankees, I mean, I think 2017 is a special spot because I didn't know it was as heartbreaking as it was until afterwards, if that makes any sense. Like, it was heartbreaking to lose in Game 7 of the ALCS, but learning afterwards that the other team cheated, and at home, which they won all 4 of their games at home, they were cheating, and you won all the games in Yankee Stadium when you weren't cheating. That's a different thing, right? Because it's not decided on the field, really. It's explicably decided off of it, which is wrong, but how it turned out.
And then another one you talked about shot. What about the Kawhi shot on the Sixers side of just the bounce, and it goes in? And that
Sure, that's definitely up there. I think more with the 76ers about all the Joel injuries than I do about that moment, because he's kind of been defined by those injuries more than that loss, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. And just kind of that era of the Sixers. Maybe that's it. But then you do have Joel and just all his injuries.
I think when I think of heartbreaking for 76ers, I think the loss in 2021 to the Hawks. That's what really, if I'm thinking playoff loss, second round against the Hawks.
Yeah, the Hawks are a great example of just kind of the Hack-a-Shaq. That is the Hack-a-Shaq series, right? Where it's just...
Yeah, it's not even just that. It's the fact that Ben Simmons doesn't go up for a layup as he's 6'10" on a 6'6" 6'1" Trae Young. I mean, it was just a brutal series that was defined by a Ben Simmons gaffe. And that kind of derailed not only his career, but obviously the process.
Yeah, that's a great point as well. So just kind of, there are so many heartbreaking moments just from personal fans as well. But to me, I'm going to bring it back to the Halliburton injury, because of what makes it so much more heartbreaking is that everyone notices how heartbreaking it is. Not just from a fan perspective, but just for a career. And we really don't know how it's going to play out.
Yeah. And I'm hopeful for Halliburton's recovery, and we'll see obviously how this works out for the Pacers in the future. But yeah, and that injury definitely got me thinking about these moments. And that's right now, without doing too much thinking, I would say the Halliburton one's the most, as a neutral observer, the most heartbreaking moment I've ever seen.
I'm in complete agreement with you on that. And it was thoughtful to see his tweet about like, hey, I'm grateful for this and how it's going to just push me to be stronger, but still you got to feel for him. And I'm really interested to see what happens. So I'll let you close this one out.
Yeah, thank you guys for listening. Please let us know what you guys think about heartbreaking moments. What is the most heartbreaking moment that your team has faced?